And you can, like I was going to say, like one thing we've not spoken about is the career side of martial arts as well. And I can recall, like I'm sounding like I've got all this depth knowledge. I have, I've done it a long time, but I'm not the master of it all. There's people that do martial arts far longer than I've even been alive. But I have been around long enough to see evolution of things, such as MMA wasn't a thing. I can remember that. And the dojo and the McDojo, I've seen the evolution of that. I've seen the evolution of people making it into a career. The club that my father first started with, they ran martial arts as a full-time business. I think people have in this country for a long time, forever have as well. Well, they did, as an example. But there's definitely been an evolution on the career and the business side of things as a martial art. It's big business. It's big business
yes.
as well.
I think that's where, and it's the same with anything, isn't it? It can get tainted if you want it to, because you can, if you allow money to be the driving force behind it, then maybe the ethics or the morals of what you're teaching then take a back seat. And then that's where that can go wrong.
Yeah, and then you can also turn around and say there's no one regulating body for it all as well. There's not one person, one group or such that we all answer to. And I don't think it would be a good thing necessarily if we would, because I think whoever that one person could have a lot of dominance over a lot of things that wouldn't be beneficial for everyone.
You see that issue in other sports that do have that large governing body.
But we have a governing body in what we do with the stand-up, with the WACO, and you only have to look at that portfolio. There are 170 odd countries around the world. Like, you don't have to rattle it off, but there's genuine ownership to what we're following and what we're abiding by and everything else. And then you don't have to name drop, but it's the people that you've practiced with and the recognition you get from people who have a standing. I think there's some clubs out there, all due respect, they compete against each other. They don't compete against anyone else. And Tom, Dick, Harry, world champion, beating that club kind of thing. There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's the whole, if you can't beat the big fish in the big pond, just find yourself another pond, right?
Yeah.
And you see that in a lot. But I think, like you said, where things are not as governed under one umbrella, you're going to get that a little bit more with the martial arts. And to say you're a world champion, it carries a level of prestige that everyone would aspire to and want.
Same as the black belt, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And there's so many places that will give you a black belt or, basically let you buy a black belt. But there's a very big difference between two black belts. And again, someone who wasn't versed in martial arts, they would see someone who's a black belt and just assume a level of proficiency and understanding. Yeah. But the reality is two black belts could be very, very different people with very different experiences.
Yeah. And, it's always been kind of brought up, what is the best style? That's always been the best, the everlasting conversation and question. I feel the best answer to that is it's not about style at the end of the day. I believe it comes down to the instructor. It comes down to the heritage of the club. That's what the best is. It doesn't really matter if you're teaching kickboxing, karate, jiu-jitsu, any of the traditional arts or any of the MMA modern stuff. I think it's down to the instructor. I think that's where the value is. You might prefer your man hugging, you might prefer your pajama wearing, you might prefer your tickling each other on a tatami, whatever your preferences of your diverse martial arts. I think it's the instructor that carries where the quality is.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's one of the questions I get asked the most by people who inquire to our school, because again, they're coming from a place of not having a clue. So you're kind of their first point of contact to get any information. And you'd be amazed that they'll actually ask you, what do you think is the best style for my kid? And you're like, well, you've called a kickboxing school. What I should say is This one, you found it first time. Good job.
Yeah.
But that's basically the conversation I always have. I say, look, your kid's not going to know the difference because they have no point of reference. What they're going to recognize is when they walk in, do they get on with the person who's teaching them? Do they feel there's a value to what they're doing? Because really, that at the end of the day now is what it all comes down to. We're no longer doing martial arts to defend our village. So if you're doing it now, it's something a bit different. I think the approach has changed.
Yeah, massively. I think it came up earlier. I thought to mention it. I think one of the biggest things that I've taken and continue to take from martial arts, or it has given me, is the schooling. I didn't personally do too well at school, as in I did no further education. I didn't come out with, an A list of grades with opportunity or that kind of thing. I didn't even want to, looking back. I just had a quite negative, I suppose, experience with school. As martial arts has been my school, and every day I say every day I learn something because of the martial arts. I learned something in the sport. I learned something in the mind. I learned something about someone, or it's been the best school tool I could ever ask for. I'm hungry for information, even after however many years of doing martial arts. I'll teach something now that I've done. I've been a knee down that I've done. I couldn't even do the math on it. Probably millions, hundreds of thousands for sure times. And every time I do it, I can learn something. I think that's a beautiful tool of the martial arts.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because I can speak to the other side of that. I actually did pretty well at school, went all the way through it, got a degree and all of that stuff. But what I never got from school at any stage was any form of satisfaction. And it wasn't because I wasn't good at it or I struggled at it. I did fine. I got A's. I got all the papers and the rest of it. But when I went to martial arts and got shown a new technique or, landed a head kick in sparring, the feeling of just self-gratification and just the goodness that came from that was just uncomparable. And that was always something where I just knew, no matter how much I study and go to school, I'm not going to get the same feedback loop that I seem to get from doing this. And now it extends beyond your training to the way you teach, because I know you experience this all the time. When now your students are kicking people in the head, it's the exact same sensation as when you kicked them in the head. When your students get to the top of the podium, it's that same thing because you've been a small but part of that journey with them. So it just carries on with you through your whole journey with it, through your practice, and then through your teaching, and then through the next generation to the next.
Yeah, massively. So as you do all of this teaching, like, when we are out of this whole COVID situation, which it's nice this podcast to be relevant with or without that right now, whenever anyone listens to it. But you would be teaching, most nights a week and everything. What do you do as your main job?
Exactly that. That's exactly it. Yeah, isn't that a question you get asked all the time? People can't seem to comprehend that this would be your main job. I get it asked a lot, I think, because I don't have a full-time premises as well. I don't know if you get asked this. I'm assuming you don't get asked this anymore.
I haven't had it for a while, no. I probably every year there's at least one that drops in. Yeah,
I'm still operating out of community centers and halls. So I think for a lot of people, they still believe that this is my part-time gig. And then you explain your numbers and how many people you teach, and they kind of go, oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, but I mean, that's the other side of it. If for anyone who is listening and interested in doing this as a career, I think it's important to preface it with, if you want to teach martial arts as a career, understand that you're going to spend 80% of your time not teaching martial arts for a career.